Welcome to the Get Sculpted podcast. We're your hosts, Tiana,
Jordana,
and Marilyn.
This podcast is all about cutting through the noise and giving you the real deal on fat loss, muscle building, and what it really takes to build your 2.0 sculpted self, inside and out. Our motto is to work smarter, not harder. We'll break down science-based and actionable strategies to optimize your metabolism, ditch the diets, and create a sustainable, fit, and healthy lifestyle that actually works for you. So if you're ready to get stronger, not just skinnier, and embrace a body you love, hit that subscribe button and let's get sculpted.
Welcome back to Get Sculpted. I cannot wait to dive into this topic, how to never diet again. It's like music to my ears, and I bet you are someone who's listening that has gone through yo-yo dieting. Maybe you've started again on Monday more times than you care to admit. And this time of year, you're probably thinking, I'm just going to put all this health and fitness stuff on pause until the new year. But we are diving in to give you the total unfiltered conversation about yo-yo dieting and how it is holding you up from actually achieving your goals, how to stop yo-yo dieting so that you don't have to diet again, right, girls? This is one of the number one things that we see in our business at Get Sculpted with our clients. And you know what? For myself, this is deeply personal. I was the poster child for yo-yo dieting growing up. I have tried it all, much like many of you listening. You know, I could name probably at least 30 different diets that I have tried.
Okay, what are some of them?
Oh my gosh, really? Do we want to go there?
Yeah,
Let's go there.
I want to know.
Okay, I have tried the cabbage soup diet. I have tried Weight Watchers more than once. I have tried the Atkins diet. I have tried fasting. I have tried extreme caloric restriction. I have tried no carbs. I have tried no fat. I have tried yes fat with no carbs. I have tried balanced macros and macro tracking. I've just tried, oh my gosh, the list goes on. I have even done diet pills. I have tried 75 hard. I have tried so many of these 12-week boot camp challenges and all the things as I was growing up. I even tried doing everything by myself. And I think that was probably the hardest, because while you're trying all these diets and you think you're getting the support, you feel really lonely in the process. And
Absolutely.
Feeling lonely in that process doesn't really get to the root causes of why we're not able to be consistent. And a lot of the time it's because we're being way too restrictive. And all of those diets are on the extreme end of trying to get to a weight loss goal more specifically versus building a healthy and fit lifestyle.
Exactly.
And so for me, that start again Monday mindset always came around when I took the approach of going way too extreme, falling off that extreme diet, and pick any one of them. They were all the same. And then having this idea of like, okay, well, I need to now recover from that diet that I tried. Then you go on this pendulum of like extreme restriction, then it swings the other way to extreme indulgence.
That's right.
And saying, I need to treat myself now. I need to recover. I need to be kind to myself. But it didn't feel like kindness. It actually felt like another type of punishment. And then it would swing again back the other way because I still wouldn't be happy with the results that I had. So the whole idea of starting Monday, whether it's Monday or the first of the month or the first of the year, which is quickly coming around to us, this whole cycle we see with our clients even before they come to us is they have this idea, this goal they want. People pick a plan that they want to follow or a challenge or a diet. They start to follow it. They make some success, but they have to literally overhaul their life, do everything very prescriptive, and then you can't maintain that. So you end up falling off the perpetual wagon, you know, and I like to say burn the wagon. The wagon doesn't exist. And then you need to start all over again.
Right.
So this is what we're diving into today, because the way that this ends up happening is by exactly going through this restrictive mindset.
Yes.
Then what you end up doing when that pendulum swings the other way can look like emotional eating, right? And binging, or just going off the rails, as a lot of people like to say.
Yeah.
And then you have this huge amount of guilt and shame because you didn't do what you said you wanted to do. And
That's
that
right.
follow through piece is what actually builds confidence. When we're consistent, that's how we become confident. And so that roller coaster that we ride is so detrimental to our mindset, our confidence, our ability to follow through, our ability to even see ourselves as like somebody who sets and achieves goals,
Yes.
right?
Your self-image.
Yeah, our identity is really impacted. So that's what we're diving into today. And, you know, I'd love to ask you, T, like, what are some of the other sides of this that you see in terms of your clients or that you've observed being in the industry for this long?
So what's standing out to me is this is such a hugely psychological process.
Yes.
And Jordan, is you being an ED psychology coach, I think that this is the cool thing about working with each other in this capacity, because I'm a very practical, logistical kind of in the body kind of person, if that makes sense. So I always thought about the physiological effects of dieting. That's the only way that I looked at it, which is really important. But what I've realized is, like you said, this is going to have a profound effect psychologically on all elements of your life when you've been through the cycle.
For sure.
It's going to affect how you perceive yourself. You see yourself as a failure, and that kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So on the other side of the coin too, there are negative effects to your body. And I want to start off by saying that you cannot damage your metabolism forever. It's not something that you can't fix.
Right. You're not broken.
You're not broken. It's not something you turn on and off. Metabolic adaptation and your metabolism regulating based on the energy and output is a completely normal process. So to put it simply, when you're eating less food over time, your metabolism is going to downregulate. You're going to expend less energy. It's going to make every effort to conserve the energy that you're burning. And the downregulation is going to kick in a lot sooner if you are eating way too little, like an extreme diet, or you're in a prolonged period of calorie restriction, which is going to negatively impact your hormones as well. So all the things when women are saying, you know, my hormones are messed up, my metabolism's messed up, you need to eat more before you eat less.
That's right.
You need to coax the fat off and not starve the fat off, not before you starve the fat off.
That's right.
Yeah, that's the approach that we take. So this is not only important psychologically, that you're not going to create these negative associations with eating, and that's a whole other story, but we want to make sure that you're keeping your metabolism as healthy as possible in the process. And to avoid ever dieting again, we don't mean that you're going to have a free-for-all and never track your food and not be mindful of your portions and have to, you know, have discipline and all this stuff. It just means that we want to make sure that you're eating as much as you possibly can while losing body fat and eating as many foods as you can, which really can be all foods, instead of just saying, okay, I'm going to eat as little as possible. I'm going to cut everything out that I enjoy, and I'm going to do this temporarily because this is going to make the scale drop. Like, by and large, you want to do things in a way that's going to be sustainable for you psychologically, but also that's going to help your body not create an adaptation too soon.
And so, T, how would you approach setting up a plan for a perpetual yo-yo dieter who's coming in saying, you know, I'd like to lose 20, 25 pounds. I've never really been able to do it successfully long term. I've seen that weight loss, but never been able to keep it off. What would be the approach that you take for them?
I love this question. I love the nitty gritty, because here's the thing. People always say, oh, I did a 1,200 calorie diet and it worked. And I'm like, yeah, okay. But number one, you're not a toddler. And
that's what I always say too.
My kids are 8 and 4 and they're like eating a lot more than that. So we want to make sure, number one, that we're not in too steep of a calorie deficit. So whatever we calculate based on their energy needs, based on the amount of muscle that they have, based on their frame and how tall they are, how much they weigh, all that stuff, then you want a 10 to 15% calorie deficit. No more, because this is when that downregulation is going to kick in and we're going to have all those negative effects happening. And then I set the realistic expectation, most importantly, that you're going to lose about 1% of your body weight a week, like half a pound to a pound a week. And, you know, they might say, well, I did the cabbage soup diet. I dropped 5 pounds. Honey, that was not all fat, number one. If you did some kind of diet, quote unquote, where you pooped a lot, you weren't pooping out fat. So there's that. And we're setting the standard and the expectation that the weight loss you achieve might feel slow to you, and the food that you're eating might feel like a lot to you. But to get a different result than you've had, you have to do things differently than you've done before. So it's not going to be as fast as you think.
That's right.
And in that process, you're going to actually lose body fat instead of losing muscle, God forbid, which you don't want. And you're not going to downregulate your metabolism. So it's like, do you want to lose fat fast or do you want to keep it off forever? That's the question.
Yeah.
That's a great way to look at it, because you ultimately would want to take a slower approach so that you can also enjoy the journey.
Yes.
Because the more you get to eat on this fat loss journey, if we're just talking about fat loss specifically today, the more you're going to enjoy that process. You're going to have less of that food noise. You're going to have less of the obsession around when you're going to eat next, because you are going to feel still satiated at some level. Now, fat loss does come with more hunger, right? Because you are in an actual calorie deficit, but you're eating enough to allow you to still have the energy you need to get through your day and being able to be consistent. That's the key here, is that in order to stop yo-yo dieting, we need to create the conditions for follow through. And that means being less restrictive, having more food than you would be normally used to, especially as a yo-yo dieter going from extreme to extreme, so that we're creating the conditions for success. You've said this before, T. Like, if you can't do 75 hard, try, what did you say?
You don't need 75 hard. You need 365 sustainable.
Yes.
Girl, there you got it. Thank you. I love that, because you want to step away from those extreme thoughts and step into something that is more doable and consistent and establishing that middle ground for yourself. And so, Mare, I'd love to hear from your perspective, like, what are these red flags that you're seeing around the yo-yo dieting mindset?
Well, that's what I was going to say is, like, aside from the fact that we know it doesn't work. And I always come back to when women say, well, I did this diet and it worked. And it's like, well, I'm going to be honest, tough love here. If it worked, we wouldn't actually be having this conversation if it worked.
Mic drop.
So there's that.
Yeah.
But the other thing is, like, how do you feel? So we've talked about, like, the psychological impact. We've talked about the metabolic impact, but it's like, what does your day-to-day feel like? And there are some major red flags. Again, and I can speak to this personal as well. When you're on an unsustainable diet, there are some really awful things that you're dealing with daily, like extreme hunger, constant cravings. I remember myself, moodiness. Like, I was quite, I won't use profane language, but I was not a nice person to my husband, my family. I constantly felt deprived. It basically painted my entire life with this brush of, like, I hate everything. Like, I can't have this. I hate everything. What's the point?
Resentful, right?
Yes. Oh my God.
Hangry on steroids.
So much so. And, you know, this goes back to what we talked about in a previous episode, that food noise. I used to count down the days until my cheat meal. And I called it a cheat meal, which, if anybody knows us, knows we don't use words like that, because, again, when you're doing something sustainably, and there's no reason to feel guilt, you're not cheating on anything, right? So I would count the days to my cheat meal. And then often what would happen is that cheat meal would turn into a cheat day. And the cheat day sometimes spiraled into cheat days, into cheat months. So, and again, we've seen it time and time again with the women that come to us saying these same things. They are not the best version of themselves. There's a lot of things going on with their body, with their mind. So I feel that the more you ignore these signs, the more all of that intensifies. It's like telling a toddler, like, don't touch that. What do they want to do? They want to touch that. So the more you ignore it, the more amplified things get. And that's when you find yourself getting to that point you talked about where you're like, I'm done. That pendulum swings and you're like, I'm giving up. I'm quitting. I'm giving into the cravings. You both also touched on this and you feel like you failed.
Yeah.
Once again, I have failed. And that's what you go into everything feeling like, that you're a failure before you've even started. So I don't think that this cycle we're talking about is about a lack of discipline. I think it's that you have restricted yourself so much, like you've put yourself in that situation where you have set yourself up to fail. Like you've backed yourself into that corner. And then, like you said, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy.
I love what you said there. And I really want you, our listener, to take that in for a second and know that it's not for a lack of discipline.
Yeah.
You have all the tools. You have all of the skill sets already. And part of being able to never diet again, and what I want to dive into, what that actually means, is being able to learn how to tap into those skills differently with a new plan that'll look different, that'll feel different, that'll actually get you to your outcome, your goals that you want to have and achieve in a different way that will feel unfamiliar at first, because ultimately when we say never diet again, that means that we're creating the environment for you to be successful long term. We're creating the conditions for you to be consistent so that we're setting up the shift for you to make this upgrade in your identity so that you are living in a new mindset we're creating the shift from dieting to get skinny in order to fuel the body to stay lean and sculpted so that you can live in your best body, your strongest body, your most capable body, so that you can live your best life.
So many women have a bad relationship with food and exercise, or say, I hate training, or like, I don't like eating. And all I can think of when you're saying this is that, gosh, you're going to love it so much when you're doing it with a purpose and you're eating more and you feel good when you train and you're not just burning calories, and it just feels so good. Like the super sculpted lifestyle. That's what we're talking about here, right?
That's
Absolutely.
what we're talking about. And it does. It feels so good to go from a place of restriction to a place of food freedom. And so, T, I'd love to hear from you. Like, what does food freedom look like from your perspective?
So this is really the big reframe here. And I think that's the takeaway for everyone. We're really reframing how you think about food, number one, specifically in this episode, but also everything, your exercise as well. So in terms of food, having freedom means that you can have anything you want, but you're still prioritizing foods that are going to make you feel good and ultimately fuel your best life, both aesthetically, so keeping you lean and in shape, but also getting you to have energy and reduce your cravings and all that good stuff. So a lot of us think of these foods like McDonald's or Kit Kats or packaged snacks as bad. And the thing is, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to say they're not very nutritious. And, you know, anyone who is shown a salad in McDonald's would agree that the salad is going to have more vitamins and minerals and fewer calories. And that's true. And it's not to say that you should only have processed food, but food freedom really means that it's not that you can't have something. It's that you're choosing not to have it, or to not to have more of it than you need, or that will satisfy that craving in the moment because you want to feel your best. So that's really the reframe. And, you know, the truth is these foods are not bad. They're just more calorically dense, and they might be known as sometimes foods. And the foods you have all the time are going to be your staple foods. And that's it.
Yeah. That's my favorite way of looking at it is we have our always foods, which make up 80 to 90% of what we have. Those are our proteins, our, you know, simple ingredient carbohydrates, fruits, vegetables, all that fiber that we want to get in. And then we have our sometimes foods, which are the packaged foods or, you know, dining out where they're really rich and things that we want to still enjoy, but have in a little bit more moderation. Yeah. So it's really about flipping the script in terms of that, one, the language that we want to be using, and two, the percentage in which we enjoy those foods on a daily or weekly or monthly basis. And Mary, you're so good at talking about this in terms of, like, I'd love to hear your thoughts on just the mindset shift of that and also how we think about body kindness around this shift.
Yes, absolutely. So I just want to kind of revisit and highlight, I think, T, you said this about the whole like never dieting again.
Yep.
It's not that we stop caring about what we eat. It's not a free for all. I actually look at it as like an absolutely incredible way to empower women about what food is, what it does, the purpose it has in our body. So I come back to the all or nothing, because that's really what I see yo-yo dieting as. I feel like it's letting go of that restrictive all or nothing approach and mindset to food. And it's that mindset shift that now focuses on respecting your body, tuning into your body's natural cues. So many women come to us and have no idea what their hunger and fullness actually feels like. So it's like actually knowing your body. It's also moving away from, as we said, we're not labeling food anymore as good or bad. We are not fearing food anymore. We're listening to our body. We're not fighting our body anymore. So for me, it always comes down to like a respect for your body, the value you're adding. And when we listen to our body's signals, we do enjoy food much more. We don't have the guilt. We don't worry about messing up or ruining our diet. It's freeing, right? So we are much kinder to our physical body, but also to our mental selves. We don't have that constant narrative of that we're a failure. For me, it's so empowering for all the women we work with.
I love that. And there is an approach that we love to take around implementing not just the mindset side, not just the nutrition side and the training side, but from a full implementation side of things. We have an approach to that. And
yes, we do.
We like to stack wins over time. We like to build sustainable habits that last. And from the research that I love around changing habits, a lot of people have said, oh, it takes 28 days to build a habit. Well, that's not actually true. there's quite a large range of how long it takes somebody to build an actual habit. And it can go from as little as 20 days to as many as over 400 days for somebody to actually change a habit. And I think it was from like 2009, the study. I wish I had it with me, but we can get the study and put it in the show notes for anybody that wants to reference where that data comes from. But what I love about it is that every single one of us will have a different number of times we actually need to practice that new habit before it becomes solidified. Yes. So if you've been trying to do something for 28 days and it just doesn't stick, that just means you need to practice it for longer.
Put in the reps.
Yeah, you need to put in the reps. And for you, it might take you 300 times of practicing that habit change before it becomes something you do as, you're practicing to just something you do as naturally as brush your teeth every day. So that's something that I really think is an important knowledge upgrade for people, because it will take some people much longer to make habit shifts than others. Other people might be able to practice it for a month and be like, oh yeah, I've nailed this. Let's go on to the next thing.
Exactly.
So building those small, sustainable habits, it really is the key. It's not sexy. It may not be fun even for some people.
Yeah.
But that is the key to success. And I always like to think about it as, what can you add to your life, as opposed to thinking about what do you have to cut or take away.
Yes, sacrifice.
Sacrificing mindset sucks.
Yeah.
The data also tells us when we think about everything through a gaining mindset, what can we add to our lives? Everything becomes so much more positive and more enriching. So instead of thinking about, from a health and fitness perspective, what do I have to cut to get to my goals? Reframe it to start thinking about what are those small things that you can add to your day that are going to help you get closer to the lifestyle and the results that you want. These could be things like increasing your step goal by 1,000 steps per week.
Yep.
It can be something like adding a glass of water after every meal. It can be making sure that you have protein at every meal. And once you've nailed those, start to get more specific and more adding on to them, because that's ultimately how you're going to create something that is sustainable, but also something that you can start to make measurable achievements towards.
Yes.
And then that's where you're going to start to build that momentum. T, what are your thoughts around that?
I completely agree. And all that comes to mind is the book Atomic Habits. Really good one.
Yes. Love it.
Yes. I love that book.
Just want to remind people, if you haven't read it, you should read it. But if you haven't read it, here's my one takeaway from that book is that you need to make it easy for yourself to implement something new. So not necessarily easy, but you need to put yourself in the best situation possible to be successful. George, you touched on that earlier. The first thing I can think of is this is why we're not doing 75 hard. This is why we're not aiming to jump into a gym 6 days a week when you haven't been in like 3 years. You're not going to start a 6 a.m. routine tomorrow when you hate mornings. Ease into it.
Yes.
Your plan should be something that you ease into. I always tell my new clients, this shouldn't feel easy, but it should feel manageable.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's not going to be a walk in the park. If you haven't been exercising, you're going to feel a little bit out of shape. You're going to feel like, okay, I've definitely been eating more than I think I have, and I'm putting things in my mouth that I didn't realize were just adding up. But it should feel like, okay, I can do this. I can stack wins. That's really the goal. And setting yourself up for success also means setting your environment up for success. Like if you can, don't buy the junky stuff, meaning like the processed food. If you can't regulate how much you're having and you want to put the right things in your environment, you want to lay out your clothes the night before, that age old trick. If you're working out at home, just sleep in your sports bra and just wake up and work out.
I've done that.
I work out in my slippers, like remove the friction.
Yes. I love that. Remove the friction.
Yeah. In the first few weeks, I tell my clients, especially if they're new to all this training and tracking food business, we want to stack wins. We don't want to be perfect. So your wins are building new habits. If you were staying 80% on your plan, you're following 80% of something when you were doing 0% of nothing.
Yeah.
So
that's right. That's huge. I just have to reference this saying I used to use when I was teaching. So, the saying, practice makes perfect, right? I had so many kids come, and no disrespect to the parents saying that saying, but the kids would come in and say, practice makes perfect, practice makes perfect. And I would say, let's change that language. Practice makes progress. And I think that's exactly what we're talking about when we say remove the friction, stack the wins, make everything set up for success. You have to practice something to make it a habit. But the whole idea of doing that is what's going to keep moving you forward. It's not like you do something and woo, catapult it forward. It's these small reps that you're putting in. Practice makes progress. And before you know it, it is a habit and you have changed. So
I love that, Mare. And what would your advice be on accountability and support?
Oh, yes.
For anyone listening right now.
I actually think that is like one of the big keys to success with all of this is finding support. You have to surround yourself with people who share similar goals, similar values, and even better if they're on the same journey as you, because these are the people that get it. They understand that this isn't about punishing your body, that it's about the value you're bringing. And it's unfortunate, but for a lot of women, they don't have other people. They might have support from a partner, a friend, but overwhelmingly, there's a lot of people still pushing that kind of diet culture mindset about like punishing yourself and do this training and don't eat this. And so shameless plug, but this is why I think our Get Sculpted community is incredible. They are an amazing group of women because they are all together on the same journey. No one is doing this alone. They have a team behind them that supports them, keeps them accountable. It reinforces the habits they're building. They are each other's cheerleaders. So it's not just us as coaches doing that for our clients, which we do. We definitely do all of those things. But you have like what I always say is an army of women behind you. You have this group of people who just gets what you're going through. And for me, I know that oftentimes is enough to kind of counteract all the other voices that I'm hearing, whether it's like media or family, friends. It's people who get it. So support is huge. Find yourself a group, a community of people who understand what you're going through and are going to keep you in that right headspace.
That is so important because a lot of times, like we come at these diets and these goals and these fitness and health things that we want to achieve as something we're going after alone. But it doesn't have to be that way. And as women, we have this stress response in addition to fight and flight and all of that and freeze, which is tend and befriend. And that stress response is actually built around community. So if we're talking about struggling to achieve goals and we're talking about starting over on Monday all the time and swinging from extreme to extreme, it's really about then tapping into that sense of community to help lower those stress levels, to be like, oh, I'm not alone. I've got 140 other women around me, literally, that are going through the exact same journey as me. And some of them are 10 steps ahead and some of them are a few steps behind. And there's also a whole pile of women exactly where I'm at. And that I think is so special because we can start to shift away from having this perfectionist mentality that you mentioned, Mare, and this idea that we need to go hard on everything, like what you were saying, T, and really refocus around progress and community and using these opportunities where we slip up, quote unquote, or fall off the wagon or whatever this like language that still exists out there is, as opportunities to learn instead of quit. I was talking with a client, she's on vacation for the month of December. And, you know, she was like, I'm really afraid to go on vacation because I've been working on building these habits in my home and in my regular life. What do I do when I go on vacation? I'm so afraid to slip up. I'm so afraid to like gain back a bunch of weight. And she's made such amazing progress. She's in her late 60s and she's lost like over 20 pounds in a few months, despite some injuries. Like she's just crushing it. And so going on vacation and planning on these days where she's playing golf, like almost the whole time while she's away, she's like, what do I do? I'm not going to have all this time to work out, or I'm not prepping food the same way. Well, this is a great opportunity when we're not in our regular environment to look at our lifestyle in two different ways. One, as an explorer, you're kind of like a scientist when you're going into these new environments, and you can take notes with yourself, be like, oh, I did this really well. Like, hey, I hit my step goal and I didn't have to try that hard. Or I did all this other activity that I love to do. It might not have been 4 or 5 workouts in the week, but I was able to do 2. And then I played golf 4 days a week. Like that's a lot of activity. Or I made these amazing choices at the restaurants, or I asked the hotel to deliver a fridge up to me so that I could get some extra things to keep me satiated in between meals. Those are all opportunities to reflect. And so when we take this more scientist approach, you can take like this assessment and bring back the data and have a conversation with your coach and your community and the people that support you and say, here's what went really well.
Yes.
And here's what I'm going to practice next time.
And work on next time.
And I really love that reframe because it gives us the opportunity to not give us the out of quitting. because the only time we really are a failure, quote unquote, is when we give up. And we don't want to give up anymore. The whole idea is to continue moving forward regardless of the circumstances that we face ourselves and
we find ourselves in.
Yeah. And T, you talk about this a lot, like consistency over perfection. Can you like give us a little bit more insight on your thoughts there?
Yeah, for sure. I always come back to one saying, which is that you want to be consistently good versus occasionally great. And this is where I think a lot of high achievers and type A and those used to excelling in all areas of their life because they put in the effort. They're like, okay, I'm going to go balls to the wall with this part of my journey. And really, this philosophy is going to serve you everywhere. You want to stack wins, like we said. You want to gain consistency, and you want that to be like doing 80% good overall is amazing. And it's going to take you way further than staying on point for 100% of the time for like 2 weeks.
I love that. And Mare, can you, leave us with your words of wisdom on some really key takeaways? Because this is, we're wrapping up the year. A lot of people are off work or they're on holidays or there's schedules are, the blur of the holiday season. What are some things that they can do to feel just a little bit more successful?
Absolutely. So I think we've all been in this situation where we've got a plan. So like we're talking about right now, we're in the holiday season. I think everybody is in this situation where plans are not always going to go to plan. There's going to be all kinds of unexpected things. And I think that's a really important thing is like we have to expect the unexpected. Like the best laid plans are not necessarily going to go as smoothly as we would like. So plan for the unexpected. It's going to be a busy day, a busy week, an event that comes up. Maybe you're having like a mentally, emotionally hard day. So coming back to that, easy to say, I'll start again on Monday. Like, oh, it's been a hard day. It's been a hard week. But we know if you keep starting and stopping, you're going nowhere. So one of the best ways that we empower our clients is have a plan for these moments. Plan for the unexpected. One thing I encourage my clients to do, especially at this time of year, is set yourself up for success. Have handy, quick things in the house. So let's just kind of talk about nutrition for a second. If sitting down and doing your full meal prep is not something that you can do right now for lack of time, then what can you have in the house that you can reach for? Protein shakes, protein bars, jerky, rice cakes, like snacks. Then think about what foods you can keep in the freezer. I love utilizing my freezer. That way I always have something. So if I do prep something, I'll prep extra, throw it in my freezer. It's there. I also just buy frozen food, frozen veggies, tuna, things that you can make easily in a pinch. So if you have those things, then when life gets in the way, you have something to reach for. I think a lot of women where they kind of, I don't want to say go wrong, but it's that they don't prepare themselves. The best way to be successful is to prepare. That can look so different. It doesn't have to be elaborate. So for this time of year, embrace the fact that life happens. Realize it's part of the plan, not outside of the plan. And instead of like waiting for the perfect time, waiting for Monday, fall back on your strategies. So one saying, I'm going to kind of take credit for it. I feel like I made it up, but I tell my clients, don't abandon, just adjust.
I love that.
Do not abandon, just adjust, because we don't need to give it all up. There is a huge space in between going hard and giving up. And that's where I want everyone to live, in that in between. So be prepared. Don't let yourself get caught unaware.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, one of our sculpted standards.
I love that. And it's really finding out what your middle ground is. And that's what being consistent is all about. That is what never dieting again is about. That is what never starting again on Monday is all about. And really for you going into the next few weeks as we round out to the new year, we really want you to avoid dieting and build habits that last. And you can start that now in really small ways. So a couple of really key takeaways, really want you to nail down, or even if you just practice one of these over the next few days, you're going to be further ahead, feeling better and stronger and happier than you would if you just had an effort moment and waited till the new year. So the first one I want to keep in mind is prioritize more whole foods rather than relying on the packaged foods. If you're prioritizing protein at every meal, you are one step towards success. And the second piece is, watch your language through this next couple of weeks in particular. Labeling foods as good or bad, let's try to start catching yourself. Say, oh yeah, I called that a bad food again. Maybe try and say that's a sometimes food, or that's an always food, or this is my favorite thing that so-and-so makes only this time of year. Have a piece of it, enjoy it, and then move on. But that is a sometimes food. We really want to focus on building small, sustainable habits one at a time. So maybe over the next week, just pick one thing that you want to do differently. Maybe it's hitting a water goal. Maybe it's a daily movement of 20 minutes. A non-negotiable could be a daily walk at this time of year. And then the last thing, we really want to move away from that restrictive mentality and start to establish what that middle ground looks like for you. And I know in our next episode, we're definitely going to be talking about the secrets of looking like you work out. And one of my favorite pieces of this is really the mindset shift of thinking and performing like an athlete versus consistently restricting ourselves. And guess what? You are an athlete. You just don't know it yet. Or you used to be an athlete and now we're going to tap back into that. And this is one of the keys to looking like you work out all year round. So we cannot wait to see you then. And I hope you have an amazing week, and we'll chat with you soon.
And that's a wrap for today's episode of Get Sculpted. We hope you feel inspired, empowered, and ready to take the next step in your fitness journey. Remember, building your 2.0 body is a unique journey for you. It's about showing up for yourself consistently and not being perfect.
If you loved today's episode, don't forget to hit subscribe and leave us a review and tag us on social at getsculpted.ca. Your feedback helps us reach more women like you who are ready to cut through the noise and make lasting changes.
For more daily tips, inspiration, and behind-the-scenes content, follow us on Instagram and check out our handles in the show notes below. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll catch you next time on Get Sculpted. Until then, remember this: getting sculpted isn't about working harder, it's about working smarter.